I'm going to share with you now this is the most practical part of the lesson right here. I'm going to share with you 4 ways to create an environment of trust. And what's so beautiful about what I'm about to share is every one of you in the auditorium can do this. We all can do this. It's not out of our reach. It's not something that's impossible. So look at your neighbor before I give you the 4 things and say to them, even you can do this. Go ahead and tell them that. Even you can do this. Are you ready? Let's go. Number 1, we're creating now a trust environment which is conducive for transformation. Number 1, value people. A trust environment begins when people feel valued. And the word beside that, which is on your screen, is the word connecting. When we value people, we have the ability to connect with people. And the flip is also true. When we devalue people, we disconnect from people. When people say, I want to be Christ-like, I say, well, if you want to be like Jesus, then right at the top of your agenda should be valuing everybody. Because Jesus valued everybody. And when you say, John, what do you mean by everybody? See, when I tell people that they need to value people, they're okay with that. Oh, yeah. It's good. Value people. Got it. But when I point to Jesus, if you want to be Jesus-like, he valued everybody. Don't miss this. He valued everybody. There is no person on this earth that God doesn't value. And the only people that have a difficult time with valuing everybody in Jesus' day were the religious people. It bothered them greatly that Jesus would eat with sinners, that he would hang around with tax collectors, that he would be down in the marker where the hookers were. Bothered them greatly. Why are you spending time with him? Why are you there? And Jesus is saying very simple, you got to understand, I'm a doctor. I came to take care of sick people. I'm a shepherd. I'm looking for a lost sheep. Don't miss this. Everybody. There is something engaging and connecting when people that are different than you and me know that they're unconditionally loved by you and me. And to be honest with you, this is where we have, as Christians, utterly failed. When people look at us so many times, they don't see us with unconditional love. And so what does that do? That creates the disconnect. You see, my perspective of you determines my attitude towards you. How I see you determines my attitude. And on the screen again, just don't miss this. If I see you as weak, I will help you. And if I see you as broken, I'll fix you. But if I see you as valuable, I'll serve you. Now just stay right with that for a moment. This is huge. This is huge. Because the first two, see you as weak, I help you. See you as broken, I fix you. In both of those scenarios, if I help you, I come out on top. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you, John. Oh, you rescued me. Oh my, you pulled me out of the ditch. I always look better if I have the perspective of the first two. But the moment that I see you as valuable, I don't now try to be over you. I try to come under you. And I try to serve you. And it's the serving heart. It's the serving. That's why Paul said, I'll go to all kinds of means to win people to Christ. I've learned to be a servant. What's Paul saying? Paul is saying, this guy that's incredibly gifted said, I'm going to serve because the only way to bring transformation to people's lives is to serve them. So we value people. That word connecting goes with that. Number two, if you want to have an environment of trust, add value to people. This is all about influence. This is where now I began to increase my influence by adding value to people. Let me give you an example. When I was a pastor, and I was writing books, and much to my surprise, when my publisher shared with me that my books were being written by the business community much more than the Christian community, I was totally surprised. I had no idea. I was shocked beyond belief. And at that moment, I felt called to go and as my mission field, the secular community. It was at that moment that I knew that I would not pastor much longer, that I would have to spend the rest of my life basically with lost people. And so I began to ask myself, how do I connect with these people? How do I influence these people? And I realized the only way to influence them people and grow in influence strength with them is to add value to them, help them grow their business, help them grow leaders, help them develop. And so I put 100% into helping people, serving people, adding value, making a difference in their lives. Not much witnessing, not sharing their faith. In fact, in that community, you just added value, add value until my influence got to the place where I could now begin to talk about my faith. Don't miss this. We increase our influence with people by serving them and adding value where they are, no strings attached. Number 3, if you want to create this type of an environment, you have to live good values, and that's all about attracting people. Attracting people. Paul talks in Galatians about the fruit of the Spirit. Let's look at that on the screen for a moment. The fruit produced by the Holy Spirit within you is divine love in all of its varied expressions. Now, this is a picture here of an attractive person. This is a picture of a person that people want to be around. If you have joy that overflows, if you have peace that subdues, if you have patience that endures, if you have kindness in your actions, faith that prevails, gentleness of heart, strength of spirit, that's a pretty attractive person. I kind of want to hang around with them, don't you? That's the fruit of the Spirit that's within us. Now, I don't have time to get into it tonight, but just understand and get the book. Get the book. Look at this last verse. Never set the law above these qualities, for they are meant. What are they? These qualities are meant to be limitless. And when you put the law more important than the values, you diminish the values. I have no time tonight to talk about how we have missed it in America because we've lost our way with values. And we think that legislation will make a difference in people's lives. If the law makes such a difference in people's life, we didn't need the New Testament nor Jesus. Yeah, I'm waiting. We lost our way when the laws of the country became more important than the values in a person's life. Trust me. And we won't find our way till we go back to values. Which gets me number 4, share good values. That's where the transformation begins, when we share good values. And the 4 ways to create this kind of an environment: value people, add value to people, live good values, share good values. It's all there, folks. It's all there. It's all about values. Go back with me for a moment to 2001. I get a call from Time Warner. That's my publisher. They asked me to come to New York City for an evening. I went to New York City. We're having a long dinner. And Time Warner asked me, they said, John, because of Enron. Remember Enron? Remember all the corporate scandals? Remember all the deviousness and the deceit of companies in America? And so we're having a dinner, and they said, John, we've looked at all of our authors, and we want somebody to write a book on business ethics, and we picked you. Would you write a book on business ethics for us? And I looked at them and I said, I can't do that. And they said, well, why not? I said, well, there's no such thing as business ethics. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And they went back to all the, no, I got all of it. I got Enron. I got this. I got the picture. There's no such thing as business ethics. There's just ethics. They said, well, would you write a book on ethics? I said, well, I'll try. I'm not sure I can. In a culture that has no absolutes, that's not an easy thing to do. And so I began to ask myself, how will I write a book on ethics? And after about a month working with my writing team and all of our creative people, we came up with an amazing thought that I believe God gave us, and that is, teach the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated. The golden rule is in every culture and every religion in the world. That's a value. And we began to go down the values path, and it was life-changing for me because all of a sudden I realized Enron will never be straightened out, or anyone else will never be straightened out because there's a law on the books. Let me tell you something. If you lack values, you will figure a way to get around the law. Again, it's not an outside issue. It's an inside issue. And the moment that we went that way, we began to understand. And so, do you remember when you were in school and the teacher was going to ask you a question and was talking to the class and you didn't know the answer? Now, perhaps you weren't like me, but there were many times I didn't know the answer because I wasn't the best student in the class. But I was the most fun student in the class. I was the most popular student in the class. I wasn't the best. No. And when the teacher had a question I didn't know, I basically would do this. Let me ask you, how many of you ever hid from the teacher? Okay, I see some soulmates out there. You weren't that good of a student either, were you, huh? You see, I didn't want him to call on me. I didn't want him to call on me because I didn't know the answer. And there were times when I did know the answer, but I didn't think they were going to call on me and they were going to call on somebody else. And so I decided to fake it. And I thought, I don't know the answer, but I'll act like I know the answer. And so I would put my hand up like this. And then there were times I knew the answer. And I not only knew the answer, I wanted the teacher to know that I know the answer, and I wanted all the classmates to know that I know the answer. I want everybody to know that I know the answer. And when I really knew the answer, my hand went up. When it comes to transformation and changing your world and values, I know the answer. I know the answer. In fact, the reason I'm so passionate about it is I know the answer because I've done it now for 25 years with millions of people, and it works. And I wish you could be with me. I wish you could be with me when teachers who've been using our values curriculum in their public schools have talked about the change in their students' life. In 3 weeks, they say they can see the change in their students after. And by the way, we have 5 million kids in public schools with our values training, and we've done it international, and we're getting ready to bring it to America. And every time I say that, somebody says, well, you'll never get the government to approve. My folks, look at me, listen to me. My name is John. I don't care. The education system is so broken down, it's so hurting. They're starting to look for other answers because they don't have the answer. I'm not one bit concerned. We'll take one school at a time. We'll take one neighborhood at a time. We'll take one community at a time. We will take it and we will move in that direction. And what thrills me, and I don't want to get us too involved, what thrills me is Todd and Julie and I were talking a little bit earlier. He said, John, I want us to do some of this in our congregation, and we're going to get together. We're going to talk. And I don't want to get ahead of you. I don't want to get ahead of you, Todd, but I want to tell you something. This year could be the greatest year in the history of this church because when you start teaching people in small groups about values, that is preconditional, and that sets up evangelism. It's when people begin to embrace good values, the next thing they are ready to do is hear the good news. but you start with values. And in fact, I went home, after the service, I went home for an hour and came back. And by the way, I went and took my walk so I could teach my values lesson today for you people to go online and start walking with me virtually. But I grabbed Margaret. I said, "Oh, Margaret, we don't have much time." But I told her what Todd and Julie said, and I said, "I really believe that we could really see something huge happen in our congregation, our church." And I'm just so excited. I'm just overwhelmed because I tell you, I will give my life for this. I will give my life for this because I see lives being changed. And let me tell you something. I don't have to win every day of my life, but I got to do the right thing every day of my life. And I got to stand for the right values every day of my life. And I'm just full of hope.
John says the 5 signs of a solid relationship, and he finishes it with number 5, trust. And you were in a meeting with me recently to where I attempted to make right a situation that I feel like not only violated what I say on this podcast, I feel like it violates John's relationship, John's content. I believe it violated some leaders on my team, and I think the ones that really suffered the most was our team members that were lost in the reality of a lack of trust. So let me explain. And again, thank you for saying something nice about me so people won't tune out now and go, that guy is a loser. But I realized something. We teach around here, Becky, and you know this and you live this, that when you ask somebody to do something, whether you empower them for a project or a position, we established that we vetted everything we needed to vet when we assigned or empowered that responsibility to that individual. And so trust is at the all-time highest it can be. It's
Absolutely.
At 100%.
Yeah.
John calls this, for all of you podcast viewers and listeners, John calls this putting a 10 on everyone's head. You have a 10, you have a 10. It's yours to prove that I was wrong in putting a 10 on your head. We do the same thing with trust.
Yeah.
If we have properly vetted, interviewed, or observed a human being to join the team or to take over ownership of a project, they deserve 100% trust.
Yeah.
Well, I violated that. I asked somebody to handle something in our organization, actually human resources. I asked them to own it. It was owned differently at the leadership level. It was owned differently with a daily administrative level. And I never could get comfortable that they could treat human resources, treat the culture that I have fought for 22 years as good as me or a couple of people that had been around me a long time, right?
Yeah.
And that's normal. There's nothing bad with that.
Normal.
But it's wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, okay, it's yours. They talked me into restructuring and reassigning. And I said, okay, it's yours. It's yours. It's yours. But the whole time, every time there was a little bump or there was a little challenge or a little ripple, I'd go, hey, have you checked with this other person? Hey, why didn't you check with me on that? How many love that leader that says it's yours, but check with me before you do everything?
Yeah.
Check with me before you think.
It's not very fun.
It's not very fun. And I did this. And I did it over and over again until that leadership behavior by me began to wear out the team's ability to feel comfortable in what they knew to do to help people. And we had a huge challenge, a challenge that if you dealt with just the behaviors or the decisions in the situation would have been terrible.
Right.
But fortunately for me this time, I wish I could get it right every time. Fortunately for me this time, I went, whoa, wait. I don't want to talk about the details of messing it up. I want to talk about what caused the missteps in the first place. And what I discovered was it was my inability or my lack of determination or my lack of commitment to give trust on the front end. I was waiting for trust to be earned. And by doing that and micromanaging that, I, the senior leader who had violated the trust commitment that I make with people, had created the problem.
Yeah.
Now, you said in that meeting, you watched our team really rally around that. But I think my biggest point that I want to make here is that truly for there to be solid relationships, for me, Becky, for you, for our team, for you, podcast listener, podcast viewer, you will not have solid relationships without this trust factor.
It's true.
And I don't believe trust is earned. I believe trust is given. And I believe trust is established after the leader extends trust.
Yes.
But so many times as leaders, we go, you got to earn my trust.
Right.
And in leadership, I don't believe that's accurate.
It's got to be opposite. So I agree. The same way that optimistically, you always give people the benefit of the doubt until they prove you wrong, and you might have to adjust some boundaries. I think trust should be the same way.
Yep.
And when we are equipping leaders, I mean, if you have a team of people that you're equipping as well, being able to give them that is everything. It's also how they see themselves through your eyes. So what you're allowing them to do is what you're telling them you believe. I'll give you an example. I'm a huge University of Utah fan. My husband's alumni. We go to every football game. We buy way too many tickets, even if they're winning or losing, but I love it. Coach Whittingham, who is the head coach, there was a young man one year. His job is to just punt, return. Like, that's all he does. Catches the ball, runs it back. They punt it, he catches it, they run it back. For people that are not football fans, I'm just breaking it down. Try not to get too technical. This young man had broken almost all the records at the school for punts returned. Touchdowns. I mean, 100-yard touchdown, which is almost unheard of in football altogether. Well, there was one particular game where, again, punted off, he caught it, he ran it back, and it was like a 98-yard touchdown. And right before the end zone, sometimes these young men do the celebration thing where they throw the ball back under them. And he had done that. So in his mind, he had crossed the goal line and had thrown the ball back. Well, the ref, nobody blew their whistle. Everybody in the crowd's going crazy. They're yelling, they're screaming. There's a touchdown. And the ball is on the ground. It's a live ball because he never crossed the threshold with the ball, which is an actual technical touchdown. One of the kids on the other team, I mean, this is like 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Ball's just on the ground. Ref is just standing there looking at the ball, not blowing his whistle. And one of the kids on the other team realizes that's a live ball, picks it up, runs it all the way down, and the ref calls a touchdown.
Wow.
The whole crowd, it was silent. Have you ever been in an arena with tens of thousands of people and it's completely silent? This was that moment. Now, everybody in the crowd, after watching it on the big screen, thought, you better kick that kid out of the school, let alone off the field. I mean, they were just ready to take him. Coach Whittingham, as a leader, knew, because guess what happens after a touchdown? Somebody kicks the ball again, and you have to return this kick. Coach knew to put that kid right back out on the field.
Wow.
I don't think there's a moment he'd probably been more mortified or questioned his ability or his ego had been bruised. I mean, it was probably the lowest of the low moment. And Coach Witt said, nope, this is your job. Brush it off. You get back out there. And you should have seen everybody in the crowd. Like, I'm pretty sure they booed their own player when he came back out. It was that bad. And that kid had to catch the ball. But as leaders, it's so easy for us to say, I'll pick it up, or I'll adjust, or I'll just make other arrangements. But imagine what it says to that young man to say, no, you made a mistake. Yeah. That's all that was. Yeah. And to give them that self-confidence and to push them through. I mean, that gives you so much perspective in life. I mean, whether that's your child or that's, someone in your leadership team. But trust on both sides has to work. So they've proven through time that you can earn more trust, I think, that you can give them more. They're capable of more. You've been able to see that with your own eyes. But I think the second part to trust is forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Because nobody's perfect. I mean, the Mark Coles, the Becky Purcells, the John Maxwells, as great intention as we have, as much as we've learned, as many books as we've read, we're still going to make mistakes. So being around people that also understand that the flip side to trust, or that second phase, is forgiveness and letting it go, and then re-empowering. And there'll be several times that you re-empower. Now, if you have to re-empower too much, you can start to question, maybe I've given them a little too much trust in that process. And the worst thing that can happen is somebody who just gets really good at apologizing and doesn't get good at changing their actions. So trust it's a big category in that aspect.
It is.
the willingness, and it speaks a lot to you, Mark, the willingness to recognize that about yourself and then to share that, not just with our lead team, but to all the world in the podcast. You're just rebuilding, and you're
establishing trust.
You've reaffirmed it, and it is an ongoing process. It's not something you do once. It's not like you got married at the altar and now it's fine. You don't have to work on it at all.
Yeah. Which takes me to the next question. Delegation, or for some of us, the lack of delegation, really can be the linchpin to priority management. Yet, how do you build that trust? Talk to me about the trust factor and how you can see that work with a partner like this.
Yeah, you just have to, out of the gate, you have to trust. And I'm sure you got a lot of listeners right now are going, I don't know about this.
Out of the gates.
But you really do. You have to come into it and say, I'm already going to trust that you're going to do the right thing and you're going to be the one to help me. Delegation is a leadership skill. And it's something that a lot of us have to work at. It's like muscles, right? You got to work at it. You got to go back and say, again, having that thought partner, that accountability partner, somebody who's good at it is going to help you do that. But ultimately start with, a small amount of things. Hey, this is what I want you to do. Watch them do it. If they, they're not going to get it right the first time.
Right.
That's the other thing that I hear leaders all the time say, well, I tried to have an executive assistant, but man, after 2 weeks, I just gave up.
Yeah,
I'm like, 2 weeks? Nobody learns anything in 2 weeks, and we're complicated people, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to match personality and to understand work styles. You got to give it time, especially in a remote environment. But once you go out the gate and trust that they have your best interest in mind, that they want to do a good job, then just slowly give them more and more and more things to do. Praise them when they do it right.
Yeah.
Direct them if they need, some help in another way. But yeah, I think, like you said, trust is the start of that. And you're going to get better at it the more that you do it.
Yeah. I've had so many friends use belay. I've had a friend that's helped start belay. You got to be a part of all that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love that they would tell me through the years of your world is you bring the best of the best that were designed and made to come in and support. And then us as leaders, as executives, as people that are trying to get focused, it is our responsibility to come back and trust. I want to camp right here for just a moment because I believe the best way to demonstrate trust to someone is, one, patience. Give them time to learn you. They know the craft. They know the trade. They know the trade. Belay wouldn't bring them to you. But give them time as a person to understand. The best way I know to help somebody understand me is what I call contextual leadership.
Yeah.
Not, hey, I need you to go book this travel. I really need to get here and I want to get back to this family thing. So can you find me the best option? When I give that little additional context, there's all of a sudden a trust that goes because we're solving this and getting this together. And so I love that you put into your system and into your language the necessity of trust within those two relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And clear communication.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, that contextual leadership, it's that clear communication. And what we find is that people need help on both sides of that, right? So we need to encourage our leaders to have clear communication. They think they do.
Sure they do. Sure they do. Don't we all? Just ask me. I'm a great communicator, right?
Yes.
It goes back to John saying, nothing else distinguishes effective executives as much as their tender, loving care of time. And oftentimes we go, oh, you're saving me time, so you'll never get any time with me. That's not saving time. You're actually creating more of a challenge if you don't spend time building that trust and making that connection.
Yeah, I meet with my executive assistant for an hour every week.
See?
How can I fit in an hour? Because again, I know someone's going, I already don't have time.
That's right.
Now you want me to go get an executive assistant who needs another hour of my time? That 1 hour is going to save me 10, 15, 20 hours in the week because I'm able to delegate things to her. Now, here's the great thing. We've now been working together 4 years.
Excellent.
Right? That's very exciting.
Excellent.
So she's already reading my mind. Now, it didn't happen at first, but to your point, I spent time with her. She understands me. She understands how I think. So that hour now, we're advancing our relationship to more complicated issues because I'm investing in her.
I love it. laysolutions.com is where you want to go ahead and figure out how to get a partner on your team like we were talking about. Can I ask you another question?
Yes,
Lily?
please do.
All right. Either now or in the past, what are some reasons that you see that keeps leaders from delegating?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on it earlier, trust.
Yeah.
I think trust is really big. I think sense of urgency would be another one. I can do it faster. It's going to take me longer to train somebody. Hear that all the time. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't have time to train anybody. It's just easier if I do it. And then the one that comes really close to that is ego.
Wow. So break that down.
Yeah, because they're going to say, well, I'll do it better. I don't need anybody. Why would I need somebody to come in here and help me book my travel? I got this. I can do it all on my own.
Yep.
You know, they feel weak by having somebody come and assist them. Now, this is what really blows my mind, though, is that rarely does a business leader feel that way about many other positions in their organization.
Is that right?
Right? So they'll go out and hire somebody
Sure.
in sales
Yep.
because they'll think, oh, you know, I'm pretty good at sales, but I know I can find somebody better. Or they'll say, there's no way I can do my own books, you know, or I've been doing this Google spreadsheet, because most
Yeah.
people start out
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? And now is the time. I'm going to go ahead and bring in somebody to build an accounting team, or I'm going to hire my CPA to do that. But for some reason, it is really hard for busy leaders to understand that the commitment, that the resources that you spend to hire an executive assistant are as important, if not more important, than those other roles within your organization, because you're able to grow your capacity.
Yeah.
You're able to focus on the things that only you can focus on. But yeah, put your ego to the side. Realize that they're going to do it so much better than you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's as you were talking right there, LZ, I was reminded that John said, if you have a dream that is bigger than you, if you don't have a dream that's bigger than you, number one, I apologize. I'm sorry that the world is all about you. It's such a small world. You ought to get out and see a bigger world. But when you have a dream that is bigger than you,
Yeah.
you cannot do it without a team around you.
Right.
And so we say this, I don't have time to train somebody else. You don't have time to not train
Right.
somebody else, because every day you delay is the day you are delaying your dream coming to pass.
Yes.
Every day you delay getting somebody to help you is another day you're not getting home and having that balance that you want. So it's up to us as leaders. When you don't have time, you are actually creating a revolving door that you'll never have time.
John then goes on to talk about not only the situation a little bit more in depth, but he talks about the players. And then he spins the narrative on this lesson, and he starts saying, hey, if you are a part of a team and we're going to make sure that you're in the right place, you got to be a couple of things.
Yep.
And you got to be secure. I think that's huge. I think that's something we don't talk enough about in leadership. But then he comes to this point, this word of trust, which is the currency to all leadership. Influence is built off trust. And he says, man, you got to trust the leader. I know this resonated with you a little bit.
It did.
Talk a little bit about this to our listeners and why that kind of stuck out to you in John's lesson today.
Do you know, trust takes two people, right? You got to have a trustee and a trustor. And so oftentimes when we say you got to earn trust, or are you trustworthy, or do you trust your leader? It's this two-way street, right? Often we find ourselves looking at trust as a two-way street, and I am not undoing that idea around trust.
That's right.
But here's what really struck me, Chris, that I said, hey, let's take a couple of minutes and talk about trust before we started recording. John asked a question in your notes. Again, I'm going to challenge you to go back and download the PDF. He asked this question. He said, a leader's first question should be, am I a trustworthy person? Now, John, in this segment, and I don't know why this struck me so much, but I feel like it's because something that our podcast listeners need to absorb. John challenges us in this idea of the players on the team. The first question is of ourself. Am I a trustworthy person? And I look at that and I go, well, you know what? Did you lie last night? Did you steal something? Did you cheat? Okay, you're good. I'm a trustworthy person. John's going much deeper than those moral, ethical, characteristic issues. He's saying, can this person trust that I have what's best for them at heart. Am I a trustworthy person? Because then he goes on and he says, can I be trusted by the organization's future? Will this direction be best for the organization? And he asks, can I be trusted by this person's potential? Will this direction be the best for people? All of those are very reflective questions that I believe a leader should ask before they have every conversation. I've got tough conversations I have all the time. Had a few a couple of weeks ago, got a few coming up. If I sit down and I ask myself the question, Chris, am I being trustworthy here? This is not talking about does somebody else see me as trustworthy. This is digging deep. But I will tell you this. I believe trust originates in a blind spot. And if I'm blind, if I have a blind spot, I love when John teaches this. If you have a blind spot, guess what? You can't see it. You can't say, you know what, last night I was sitting alone and I saw a blind spot. No, you can't see. Blind spots are always pointed out to you. And to be honest with you, the bigger the blind spot, the bigger the surprise when you see it. In fact, the bigger the blind spot, the more resistant you are that it's a blind spot when you first hear it. So, am I a trustworthy person? I don't think you can answer that question internally, even though it's an internal question. I think you have to get people around you and say, give me the body of my work in situations like this. Am I a trustworthy person? Give me the body of work in how I have treated this organization's time when they're paying me. Am I a trustworthy person? Too many people try to answer that question as John directs to answer. Am I a trustworthy person? But most people don't go through the discipline of figuring out if they have blind spots before they answer that question. My greatest challenge to you, and this is why, Chris, I wanted to bring it back up. My greatest challenge to all of us is to really ask the question, am I a trustworthy person before you go make a hard leadership call, before you make a leadership decision? Am I a trustworthy person? But I'm going to take you one step further. Don't just ask the question, get input about the question, because chances are in the area of trust, you trust yourself. You know where you're coming from. And so you consider yourself a trustworthy person when really you're just a comfortable person that's pretty blind to your own way of doing things.
Why this is so important is people are looking to their leader for their career development. So let's stay on the professional side for just a minute. And nowadays, inside organizations, people are joining or staying with companies, top 3 reason, because what is that leader going to do to develop me? Do I trust that leader? And I love how you're posing us to ask that question. I've also heard another way where they say, what's it look like to be on the other side of my leadership? Right? Like, and are you willing, to your point, are you willing to put people around you to be able to answer that so that when you do put people in the right place on the team, the organization benefits, but the person benefits even more. And then, oh, by the way, third, then you'll benefit as a leader.
Today's word is trusting. It's one of the 7 words of love from my book, Love Works, and it's a very powerful leadership principle. And the definition of trusting is to show confidence in someone. And I learned a lot about trusting at a very pivotal point in my leadership career, and I want to share that story with you. When I was in the auto industry, I started at the bottom. I was a plant foreman. I worked in car dealerships. I worked my way up to be the president of a GM division, Saab Automotive. And I led as an expert. I felt I had a lot of the answers. I was more autocratic. I tended to tell people what to do, not ask them what should be done. Frankly, I felt like I knew too much. But then I was asked to be the CEO of a theme park company called Herschend Enterprises, then also at SeaWorld. And I had to learn to lead in an entirely different way. Instead of knowing the answers, I had to find the answers. And what I learned through a lot of mistakes, 3 things to think about if you want to be more trusting and show confidence in someone. The first is to give them clarity. Without clarity, there's actual cruelty. And that's a Brené Brown quote. Without clarity, you have cruelty. You have to be clear with what your expectations are, what does success look like, and then let them go. The second part of being trusting is to show empowerment. And the best question I've ever heard on empowerment is so simple, it's so powerful. Think about, what's the worst thing that can happen here? And can I live with it? And when I'd ask myself that question, I could let people go a lot more than I thought. Let them make mistakes, they'll learn from it. And then the third thing is to always ask a lot of questions, don't give the answers. So with clarity and empowerment and asking questions, what I found is I found better people and they wanted to work for me more, and I didn't lose good people. It's a powerful, powerful principle. So if you're going to trust, put confidence in someone and you will be a better servant leader.
Hi, my name is John, and I would like to talk to you about the principle of earning trust. I'm not certain that there could be a better compliment to you or to me than to have somebody come up to me and say, you know, John, I can count on you. In other words, what they're saying to me is, John, you're trustworthy. Or for somebody to walk into your life and say, boy, you know what, I depend on you. I count on you. What a great compliment when somebody basically say, you're a trustworthy person. Now, you aren't born with the trust of people. You've got to earn it. It takes time. And I talk about depositing in your trustworthy account. I mean, how do I build trust? How do I make my account bigger? How do I increase my trust level with you? The reason this is so important is trust is the foundation of all good relationships. You show me a good relationship, and I will show you a relationship that is built on trust. Just like you show me a relationship that's falling apart, and I'll guarantee you, it's losing trust. And you and I are either depositing into our trustworthy account, or to be honest with you, we're withdrawing. And that account has the potential of getting bigger, or it has the potential of getting smaller. So what do I do? How do I expand and grow that trustworthy account? Because here's what I know. The more trustworthy I am, the more influence I have, and the more that I can make a difference and help people. So I do two things to increase that trustworthy account. Number one, my words and my actions are the same. Nothing throws people a curve than to have somebody say one thing and do something entirely different. You don't follow a leader like that very long, and it gets quite confusing, and you're not really sure who's the real leader and who's talking to you, the person that's supposed to be or the person that is. So you want to make sure that there's an alignment between what you say and what you do. And the longer you're with people, what you do holds more weight than what you say. I've often said that in the beginning of a relationship, what I say to you holds more weight than what I do because you haven't been around me enough to see what I do. But over time, you're watching me and my behavior becomes apparent. And after a while, my words mean less and my actions mean more. But when your actions underscore and are the foundation to your words, and they align together, you now have built your trustworthy account. Number two, I think trustworthy accounts are built when you continually mean the best and do the best for people. This is about motives now. This is about my attitude towards you and my value of you. You see, if I value you, I'll do everything I can to add value to you, just as if I devalue you, I'll do everything to subtract value from you. So when people give another person trust, they basically say, one, they value me, and two, their words and behavior are aligned. Now, when you do that consistently over time, just like money invested in interest, it just begins to compound and get better. In fact, isn't it interesting? The bigger it gets, the better it gets, and the faster that it grows. I always tell people, if you think being trustworthy is good on the front end, it's amazing on the back end. Because now you have had a life that has proven out that trustworthiness. So that's where you start. Align your words and behavior and value people. Do that long enough, consistently enough, and guess what? You'll be trustworthy.
Today's topic, and I love this, and this is a word that we're all going to be very familiar with, but as a leader, we need to continue to keep it in front of us. We need to continue to talk about it, and that word is integrity. Today's title is Leading Yourself with Integrity. Sounds like a very rich topic. Perry, what are you thinking about this? Where are we going?
Well, I'm working on a project for a client, and this question came up about how do you lead yourself with integrity? And I just realized as I was researching and doing some just digging into it myself was that we often teach about how to lead others with integrity. Are you a high integrity leader? And it generally comes down to how I lead others. But I think integrity really starts with me. It really starts with ourselves and how you lead yourself. It can be easy for us to try to do the right thing for others and then shortcut our own integrity on how we do things. So I really wanted to dig into what are the components of integrity and how would one lead yourself with integrity? How can you grow it?
Yeah, and Perry and I spend a lot of time talking about leading teams and the organizational impact, and this is just kind of taking a step back, and it starts with self. Yep. The hardest person to lead is yourself. And oftentimes integrity comes into that. And so we want to just kind of spend some time talking about that today as you're listening to us or if you're watching us on YouTube. So as you began talking and thinking about this topic, you gave me a quote that I think is so relevant that I've read before, and I think it fits right here from the great coach John Wooden, where he says, "Be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are." And that is a strong quote from Coach John Wooden. Man, when I think about this, I also think about, I hear John often say, man, for me, the people that I have closest to me, if they love and respect me the most, then I know that I'm leading out of integrity. I know that I'm leading well. And so let's talk a little bit about, is integrity, is it about your character? Like, is it mostly about, what is it? Like, let's unpack it. Because sometimes people have a different definition for integrity.
Right. Character is definitely a big component of integrity. But the way I think of that, and this is just from researching it myself to make sure I've got it clear, that character is really the moral and ethical code of conduct that we live by. And it's driven a lot by our personal values. And so I have a moral and ethical code that I live by, driven by my values. But integrity is really the decision I make to consistently live by that code. The word integrity evolved, from the Latin, and my wife will love that I'm throwing out because everybody else was taking Spanish, I took Latin, and she's giving me a hard time for 40 years. Yeah, see, and now you'll give me a hard time. She always says, "How's that Latin working out for you?" But anyway, that's the point. Integrity comes from Latin, meaning whole or complete, defined as completeness, state of being complete or whole. We get the words like integrated in there. So think about integrating. Pretty good way I think to remember integrity. You're integrating your thoughts, your words, your actions to be consistent and whole. They're integrated. They're not you do one thing and say another type of thing. So to me that's the way I usually think about it.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me think about when I was in college about 6 years ago. No, I'm just kidding. Back playing football a long time ago.
You were in college for 6 years.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a different plan. I was at a different pace. I remember playing football in college, and I'd be at home doing workouts, and we would get a packet, not via email back then, but actually in the mail, and it would come to us. And at the bottom of that, there would always be this definition, this quote, where it said, "Integrity is doing what you're supposed to be doing when no one is watching." Yeah. And in essence, trying to make sure that we were motivated
Who's doing your homework?
doing our homework, that we're out there getting things done. And so I think that speaks perfectly to this integrity thing that we're talking about leading yourself with integrity. And if you're not doing that, you sure can't be integrated and whole when trying to then lead others. So how can you ask others to have integrity or to lead with integrity if you're not living that out yourself? So let's talk about how someone can go about developing their integrity.
Yeah, it's you think I either have it or I don't. No, you need to work on this, it's something you want to be constantly aware of, your own level of integrity. And that's why I start every conversation talking about either character or integrity about self-awareness. Such a big lesson for leaders that so many research about the best leaders are really these highly self-aware. We've spoken a lot about self-awareness here, have some podcasts on that, but it often comes down to developing character and integrity is essential to really for you to know who you are, what your personal values are. I mentioned that. What's my strengths and weaknesses? How clear am I on my strengths and weaknesses? Am I trying to be something I'm not? Just being honest with myself. Where is it I need improvement? What's my effect on other people? I love this one. Who's in my inner circle that's holding me to a standard? And we've talked a little bit about the inner circle here as well. But anything you can do to increase self-awareness will keep me from kidding myself about how I'm leading myself.
Yeah, that's good.
You can put that on a tweet if you want to.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I think about this, in addition to everything you just talked about, and you begin developing this, like what are those areas specifically that you can do? One of the ones that comes to mind right away, we don't talk about this enough in leadership, is how consistent are you? And we,
my favorite word.
We joke around, but it's really not funny that one of the most influential people that we know in an organization, this is a true story, a Fortune 500 company, is one of the executive assistants on that floor because she has 2 different color coffee cups.
Remember that, yeah.
Remember that? And this is a true story. And because that leader's not very consistent. And so, again, that plays into the integrity of that leader.
The red cup says,
that's right.
Stay away. The green cup says,
right.
Come on.
That's right. So if you're listening to us and you're walking down the C-suite and you see different colored coffee cups, you'll know that you're the organization we're talking about. The other one is about authenticity. Harvard Business Review did a study and said, man, what is the top attribute about leaders that when you look at the top 200 leaders around the world, and authenticity was number 1, and it wasn't even close to number 2. How accountable are you to yourself? This is big, even building off of what you just talked about, not even awareness of self, but then being accountable. And then the final thing is, how integrated are your words with your action? Is it lining up? Is your audio lining up with your video?
Yeah, I like you threw in accountability. Accountable to myself is enormous. People of high character and integrity are accountable and responsible to themselves, as well as to others, but especially to themselves. They also consider implications of their words and actions on others. So you're thinking, how I speak, am I aware again of my effect on other people? They tell themselves the truth, and I think, well, you think I'm not telling myself the truth?
Yeah.
No, I think that we can easily, it may sound a little weird, but I can tell myself things that I think are the truth, but they're not always true. Am I distorted something, or have I?
I've heard it say that
denial.
I'm the best salesperson for myself, right? Like I can give it and sell myself anything.
Yeah. I think I heard Andy Stanley say recently that every bad decision you've ever made, you were there. You were the one that was there to do that. So, but we can be in denial. We can distort situations. I manage myself based on my intentions. I judge you based on your actions. So
that's right.
I think we have a way of distorting things that we see. And so can I get in the habit of telling myself the truth and being completely honest with myself, even if it may not be, that attractive.
Yeah. And why it's important to become aware and to work on this is because it's going to be tested.
Oh, yeah.
It has been tested. You're probably sitting there saying, oh, man, that just this morning, just yesterday. Absolutely, it's going to happen every single day. And so your character and your integrity are going to be tested as a leader. And I know I've heard you teach on this. And I know that you've included this in the Learner's Guide. Again, referring you back to maxwellleadership.com/podcast, where you can download that, where you've mentioned 4 different areas to where you're really tested about this when it comes to character
and I think
and integrity.
I would encourage you as you go through them, everybody being honest, tell yourself the truth. Where are you most susceptible?
Yeah,
I'll probably share an idea that I had on this, but go ahead.
Yeah, let's do it. So there's 4 areas, and then I'll let you share. Is money, finances there, liberty or freedom. That's number 2. Number 3 is recognition, and then the 4th one is pleasure.
Yeah, so you think about anytime you're dealing with money, you have a chance to do things for money. The way money pops up there, liberty or freedom. I'm the boss. I can do. I have the
free reign.
Free reign. I can do what I want. Recognition, keeping it versus passing it on, or sharing it versus not. pleasure, just doing fun things or entertaining things to get me off track to do that. But I think one area where we can deny or distort the truth is well, since I've been studying and preparing this lesson, I don't know how you are, but when you're teaching something, it becomes very all of a sudden it
shows up everywhere.
All of a sudden it shows up everywhere in your life, and so I notice I have the best intentions, and but I'm still yet tempted to cut a corner. I'm the easy way.
What are you trying to get off your chest over there, Perry? You're hesitating. What are you thinking about? What's the example?
It's simple, silly things, but I actually, as I reminded of this morning here in the office, was I come in the office here and I use this temporary office, and there's nobody's in the office. It's an empty office for guests and visitors. There's a pen laying on the desk that is one of John's 4-color pens, and it was a nicer version than what I have, and I thought, I should just take that pen. I like that pen. Just throw it in your bag. And then I'm teaching this lesson going, that's not my pen. Now, I could walk down the hall and ask you or 10 other people, and everybody would say, take the pen.
Yeah.
But why am I just tempted just to take the pen? That may sound like a silly example, but it's exactly what I do.
Small, but yeah, it's good.
I'm playing my family, kids and everybody. We play Wordle.
Oh, we do the same thing.
But we have an ongoing text stream, and every day everybody shares their Wordle score. And you only get 6 chances. If you haven't played Wordle, don't start. It's addictive. But you only get 6 chances. And I notice I'm tempted when I get down to only 6. Just go Google the answer and put it in a 6 and say, whew, I made it, versus having to say, I missed it today. Yeah. And so I just think, no, I'm not doing that. But, each of us, if we're just honest, important word there, honest, have dozens of opportunities that pop up. I tell you, just one happened yesterday. My wife took something in to be embroidered. The embroider people said it can't be done. She'd already paid $15 for it. They said can't be done. So the owner of the shop put her fabric into a container and put the $15 in cash into the container. When she went to pick it up, the person working there, the owner wasn't there, the person working there gave my wife the container and another $15. When my wife got home, she found $15 in her hand and $15 in the bag. And we were talking about it last night. She goes, I got to make another trip. I got to get back up there and give them back the $15. I think, how often would we be tempted? It's only $15. I'll just let it go. And thinking, no, if I'm going to lead myself with integrity, who's going to know she kept the $15? She will.
Yeah, that's right.
She will. So I just love the fact that we just looking for ways to lead myself with integrity. And
the examples that you're given are so small, but yet so real.
That's kind of the point.
And if it happens there, it's going to happen with the bigger things, right? And it's funny about the Wordle because our family does the same thing. And they're already coming in today. I did mine earlier, and I got 5 out of 6. But when I see somebody come in like 2 out of 6, I'm like, get off Google, right? But yeah, I think that I love how simple the examples are as a leader, but it becomes a behavioral pattern that we need to be aware of. It also makes me think about John's content around leader shift, and we talk about we got to make it from perks. We got to make the shift from perks to price. Yeah. And that we can all be enticed by a pen, as simple as you're talking about. But man, we really got to understand the price that then pays, or we then have to pay with that in regards to leadership from an integrity standpoint.
It's a high calling.
We got to be aware of it. You have to absolutely be aware of it.
Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results.